Welcome back to our politics. Unemployment fell to the lowest this century in 2018, according to a new report from the European Commission. But the situation may not be as rosy as it looks. There's also been an increase in temporary contracts. In Spain, Slovenia, Poland, Portugal, Italy, and Croatia, rates for temporary contracts are persistently above 15%, and 60% of these are young people. All right, here with me in the studio to discuss this is Italian MEP with the Socialists and Democrats group, Brando Benifei. And we have Beatrice Rios, a reporter with Euractiv. And so with us is Darren McCaffrey, our political editor. All right, let's start with this rosy figure that the Commission was presenting. I mean, yes, great that unemployment numbers are going down. But this hides, I think, a darker reality on temporary contracts. Is this being recognized enough?
Yeah, because I think also we need to look very in-depth at the big differences among the European countries and also among the regions inside the same country. We have very big differences in terms of the stability of the contracts, and it's true that the high number of temporary contracts have increased.
Are you worried about it?
Yeah, I think many young people are worried about that because it's difficult to plan any kind of family life and long-term project when you have too much of a temporary work life all the time.
Yeah, you can't get mortgages. I mean, yes, you can't plan a life when you look at that. You were looking into, like Spain, for example, has a very, very high number of temporary contracts.
It's a result of the reform of the labor market that was made by the previous government. And they even considered themselves at the time, and now the new government as well, that there is a problem because the idea was to flexibilize the labor market. But the result was that most of the people with temporary contract were actually not willing to have that contract, but it's the only thing they have been offered.
But you see, that's good. When the economy is bad, isn't it good to actually just make the market more flexible?
Well,
why not? Why not?
Yeah, so I think that when the labour market is changing, we have to recognise that.
Sure.
And it's not necessarily all for bad. And temporary employment is not necessarily that bad either. Sometimes it's better. People now lead far more diverse lives and having some form of flexibility.
And some would say millennials prefer it.
Yeah, well, flexibility is not a bad thing. It means that you can essentially make work around your life if you want. If you're a student, for example. That is not to say that it can thus be exploited, and there are cases where it has been. It is notable that temporary employment is mostly among the young. And again, if that means that people at least have a foothold in a job that otherwise wouldn't be there because of high unemployment rates, again, that is a good thing. The important thing is it has to then translate itself, if people want, into a more permanent job post when they're 25.
Which doesn't always happen. Okay,
but we should not forget that the labour market is also a matter of conflict between different interests of those who provide jobs and also those who give their energy and their competences for working. And if we have a higher number of temporary jobs, too much high in the EU, in the end, the workers will have less capability to maintain and support their rights, their opportunities. We have seen, in fact, a degrading of the workers' rights related to the fact
maybe it's not the government that needs to change. What about maybe banks should be more open to lending to people with temporary jobs, or landlords should be more willing to take...
For sure, I totally agree, and I'm happy that through different European funds we have tried to overcome these limits with the bankability of people. This has been at the center of many actions also at European level. But my opinion is that we should give more possibility for those who want to have a more stable work life to have it. Because I've heard a lot about the issue of choice. It's true, there is choice, but sometimes there is no choice. They have to have that or they have no job. And this is not a way to, I think, build on quality employment.
It's not only about the length of the contracts, it's also about the conditions that Darren was mentioning before. The problem is also that the conditions of the labor market are deteriorating. So many people that actually have a job, in particularly temporary jobs, they still live in poverty. And that's an issue. So it's not exactly. So it's a poverty in work. So people that have a contract, that have a job, they are also struggling.
Yeah, the in-work poverty. So that linking to the quality of the jobs. Darren, you want to add?
It comes back to though this availability of choice, and as long as it is based on choice, it is a good thing. And temporary employment, by its very essence, isn't bad. And it comes back to I suppose, kind of the dividing line that we do see in politics, were people who embrace that type of environment in which actually being flexible with an element of insecurity is not a bad thing, and mobility is not a bad thing, compared to people who very much view those concepts as a threat. And that, I think, you're seeing a dividing line in politics. But be in no doubt, you know, people across this continent are still better off compared to 20 years ago. Employment is rising, thankfully, and people are working fewer hours. And again, overall, that is a good thing.
Okay, very quickly,
I think it depends on the areas of this continent, because if we look, we have areas where we have seen, especially young people's poverty rising, and this is a failure for politics in any case. And I think that, again, not all the temporary jobs are for those who are really choosing that, because obviously...
But isn't this the important point, that actually it is in the economies that have a more open, flexible economy, where employment is higher...
But the inequalities have been rising all over Europe. So this flexibility was not able to really distribute opportunity and income in an even way.
Youth unemployment in Spain is over 25%. I mean, forget about inequality. I mean, that is a damning statistic. And in part, that is because Southern European economies are not as open and flexible.
I'm not convinced that you can overcome unemployment, the high numbers you mentioned, and are also in other countries, by increasing temporary jobs that can be easily substituted.
I mean, clearly,
maybe with migrants.
This is a fiery conversation.